Zato Kazuma, a total shut-in who finally decides to set out on a 5-hour round trip to purchase a limited edition game, meets his tragic end after getting hit by a truck while saving a young lady. Kazuma regains his consciousness in the realm of the afterlife and meets the goddess of water, known as Aqua, who proclaims that Kazuma is officially dead. After hearing this, Kazuma initially asks if the young lady is safe, and Aqua states that the lady was not supposed to get hurt because the tractor would have stopped before hitting her. Aqua ridiculed Kazuma for facing a silly death after he mistakenly took a tractor into a truck and died out of shock while wetting his pants. Despite seeing Kazuma's embarrassed face, Aqua asks Kazuma to choose between being transported to another world where a long-sought peace is threatened or proceeding to heaven, where there is no entertainment like games and TVs. Kazuma doesn't see the need to be transported to another world if he would just end up being killed again, but Aqua immediately resolves this issue by allowing Kazuma to choose a power with an opportunity to take something with him as he commences in the parallel world. However, due to Kazuma's annoyance with Aqua's cocky attitude, Kazuma states that the thing he wants to take with him in another world is the goddess Aqua herself. After saying this, a new goddess descends to take over Aqua's job and sends the troubled goddess to another world with Kazuma, who is devilishly smiling after getting back at Aqua's cockiness. Kazuma and Aqua are successfully transported to Axel, a small town in a parallel RPG world. The new opportunity to redo a previously boring life excites Kazuma, who immediately asks Aqua to give him a new set of clothes. Kazuma discovers that Aqua has no knowledge about games, and is even unaware of distinct places in Axel. In short, she's useless. With the help of a stranger in a pub, Kazuma and Aqua head to an adventurers guild, but the registration fee finally brings them to the realization that they don't possess even a single penny. Aqua approaches a priest, proclaiming herself a goddess, but Aqua's words are deemed untrue, and her pride is hurt after receiving a few coins from the priest, who turns out to be a follower of Aqua's subordinate goddess named Eris. To Aqua, who's a high-ranking goddess, receiving pity from a lower-ranking goddess's follower is unacceptable. Kazuma and Aqua head back to the guild where their status is measured. Kazuma sulks after seeing his low status with incredibly high luck, which is not essential for an adventurer, while the entire guild cheerfully welcomes Aqua as archpriest, who has an insane spiking record on her healing abilities. Kazuma and Aqua's lives started to evolve as workers on construction sites, earning real money as they sleep in a barn to save their funds. After living a realistically struggling life, Aqua realizes that it is not the parallel life he is aiming for. With this, Aqua and Kazuma finally decide to explore Axel and start their adventure. Kazuma finally gets a taste of the harsh reality among part-timers under the guise of being an adventurer with an unstable job and an unfair wage, while Aqua wakes up and lightens the mood after bringing up the fact that their adventure officially commences. Kazuma and Aqua's first quest adventure involves giant cannibal frogs, who easily eats Aqua, but Kazuma is able to save her. As a goddess with pride, Aqua thinks that being in such a ridiculous state might discourage her followers and angrily strikes a giant frog, but Aqua's attack poses no harm to the monster, who immediately places Aqua inside its mouth again, prompting Kazuma to save her once more. Their quest ends with 2 giant toads killed. While eating, Kazuma expresses his dismay after receiving a measly award after risking their lives, but Aqua tries to cheer up Kazuma's mood by saying that their recruitment for someone who specializes in advanced combat skills starts on the next sunrise. Kazuma and Aqua sit boredly in a corner after nobody shows interest in their member recruitment. Given their current profiles, Kazuma is sure that nobody will find their recruitment interesting. However, Megumin, a crimson demon with heroic delusions, approaches them. But after stating some words, Megumin falls to the ground, admitting that she hasn't eaten for 3 days. Kazuma starts to assess Megumin's background by checking what she is hiding behind her eye patch and states that she only wears it as it looks neat, much to Kazuma's disgust. Kazuma and Aqua takes Megumin's adventurer card, scans her status, and discovers that Megumin is an arch-wizard. Aqua suggests that having a wizard in their party will be great and immediately receives another quest to kill 5 giant toads within 3 days. Megumin overhears Kazuma and Aqua's conversation and asks about Aqua's background as a goddess, but Kazuma, who doesn't want any further explanation, states that Aqua is just delusional and is just making up stories. This triggers Aqua, who immediately rushes to a giant toad and unleashes a powerful skill despite knowing that physical attacks don't work on the said monsters, and Kazuma boredly watches Aqua as the goddess is slowly being devoured by a giant frog. On the other hand, Megumin starts enchanting a powerful magic spell that burned the giant frog into ashes, but ends up alerting its kin. Kazuma looks back to Megumin for assistance, but the overwhelming magic power that she used for a single spell made her muscles numb and immobile. As the giant frog starts to eat Megumin, Kazuma has no choice but to save his two useless comrades again. Their quest ends with 3 giant toads killed. As they walk back home in a ridiculous state, Kazuma informs Megumin that she's banned from using explosion magic as it drains her powers. But after knowing that Megumin cannot use any other spell other than explosion magic, Kazuma realizes that like Aqua, Megumin is also useless. Kazuma tries to divert their attention by saying that the reward will be split into 3, aiming to end their connection with Megumin. But Megumin retaliates, saying that she's completely fine to go unpaid, but a long-term supply of some food as their party member will do. Hearing this, Kazuma and Megumin initiate a commotion that catches the commoner's attention, leading Kazuma into a tight spot after thinking that the young man has the nerve to abandon a poor girl. With this, Kazuma has no choice but to ease the situation by accepting Megumin into his team. And after taking their reward, Kazuma goes back to the quest board but cannot find another quest that can match his party's weakness. Just in time, a female knight named Darkness approaches Kazuma with excitement to join his puny team. After Kazuma's unpleasant experience with Megumin and Aqua, the fear of recruiting another weird person overcomes him as he kindly declines Darkness's request to join their party. Despite Kazuma's refusal, Darkness still insists on being recruited, saying that Kazuma can use her as a shield since she's a fighter who specializes in swords and combat. Kazuma heads back to the pub, witnessing that nothing has changed with Aqua, along with Megumin, whose ego is hurt after Kazuma called her a little girl. After knowing that points can actually help Kazuma earn a skill, Darkness suddenly appears after looking for him since he left off during their conversation last night. Kazuma meets Chris, a thief and Darkness's friend, who suggests that Kazuma could learn a simple stealing skill as a starter and volunteers to teach him in exchange for a cold drink. Kazuma, Chris, and Darkness immediately head to a secluded place to train. Chris takes Kazuma's coin purse and challenges Kazuma to learn the skill by himself and take the purse back from Chris. After realizing that Kazuma fell into Chris's trap, Kazuma felt determined to outdo Chris. And after installing the necessary skills in exchange for some points, Kazuma instantly enchanted a spell. But instead of taking back his purse, Kazuma got Chris's underwear. Kazuma shoves the underwear around, getting back on Chris, who tried conning him, while Darkness, who is amazed by Kazuma's silly behavior, watches them in a corner. As they went back to the pub, Chris put Kazuma in a hot seat by earning people's sympathy after Kazuma took all of Chris' money in exchange for her underwear. Upon hearing this, everyone, especially the females inside the pub, begins to stare at Kazuma with stoned expressions. Kazuma tries to prove his skill in front of Aqua and Megumin, but gets Megumin's underwear instead, resulting in her asking Kazuma if he changed his title into pervert instead of adventurer. This leads to Kazuma questioning his own steal skill as it's supposed to summon random items. While arguing, Darkness approaches Kazuma again to join his team. After seeing Darkness's adventurer card, Megumin immediately states that given Darkness's skills as a crusader, their upcoming quests will be a lot easier. But knowing Darkness's weird personality, Kazuma is still determined to decline Darkness's genuine request, and tries to scare Darkness and Megumin using the dangers that they may face. However, Kazuma's words didn't scare either Darkness or Megumin at all, much to Kazuma's dismay. An emergency announcement immediately catches the adventurers' attention, and everyone, including Kazuma and his party members, heads to the front gate. Kazuma's fear immediately disappears after seeing a flock of flying cabbages coming their way. The adventurers excitedly harvest everything by killing the cute flying cabbages, and every ridiculous thing that Kazuma encountered, including the flying cabbages in front of him, has finally made Kazuma question his existence in the parallel world, thinking that shutting himself up and living normally is much preferable. But Darkness suddenly interrupts Kazuma's thoughts, saying that this is the right time to prove her skills. Darkness immediately rushes to defeat the cabbages, only to expose her poor performance with her sword after she misses each of her targets. The cabbages' attack becomes more and more intense, and some adventurers fall to the ground. After seeing them, Darkness immediately uses her own body as a shield, even though her clothes are slowly tearing up by the cabbages' impact. Darkness turns out to be a pervert who enjoys other people's fantasies, not only for others but even with Darkness's own body. Seeing that Darkness is allowing all the uncultured men to stare at her skin, Kazuma finally realizes that his hunch that Darkness is weird is actually true. On the other hand, Megumin starts to cast a huge explosion of magic that wipes out every cabbage, including the adventurers, completing their emergency quest. Kazuma and his team have their dinner in a pub with stir-fried cabbages, as Aqua compliments Kazuma's usefulness by using his steal skill on their fight with the flying cabbages and collects all of their loot. This time, because of the majority's decision, Kazuma has no other choice but to accept Darkness, a pervert and a masochist in their party. After gaining some points from fighting flying cabbages, Kazuma uses it to allow himself to create a water ability. Using the rewards gained from their recent cabbage hunting, Kazuma and his team accumulate their fair compensation, except for Aqua, who caught lettuces instead of cabbages. After Aqua spent all her money thinking that she'd be receiving a hefty award, Aqua tries to ask Kazuma for some money, but Kazuma immediately refuses. After Aqua triggers Kazuma with malicious words that might put Kazuma in a tight spot again, Kazuma covers Aqua's blunt mount, saying that he'll lend Aqua some money, and after receiving the money, Aqua happily approaches two suspicious men to whom Aqua is indebted. The next day, Kazuma finally acquires clothes that are appropriate for an adventurer and replaces the tracksuits that he has been wearing. Megumin, Darkness, and Aqua express their excitement to embark on another quest, while Kazuma hesitantly announces that their next destination is a place where giant frogs are currently in mating season. Upon hearing this, Megumin and Aqua, who have been traumatized by their past experiences, immediately decline the quest, and Kazuma fills in the important details for Darkness, who becomes curious as to why Megumin and Aqua are suddenly acting strange. Kazuma and his team starts to look for another quest on the guild's mission board, but every task dictates that they will be facing strong monsters and beasts, which Kazuma cannot accept due to their party's incapability. The guild's receptionist approaches them, saying that one of the Demon King Army's leaders has moved to a nearby town, and because of this, weak monsters have begun to hide. After hearing this, Kazuma and his team go home in disappointment and wait for the next day. Megumin decides to take Kazuma for her magic training, so someone can carry her back once her body becomes numb. After reaching a vacant space, Megumin immediately starts her chance and unleashes a powerful explosion before falling to the ground and having Kazuma carry her back home. Because of their inability to accept high-ranking quests, Aqua starts selling lettuce, Darkness moves back to her homeland to conduct her own training, and Kazuma continues to accompany Megumin as she fires explosion magic towards an abandoned castle every day as part of her training. After finally unleashing a perfect explosion, Megumin and Kazuma initiate a deal that Kazuma will learn explosion magic if his points reach the necessary credits to acquire it. Aqua comes back to their barn with a bowl of leftovers from the pub, and Kazuma bluntly states that their team will not stand a chance to defeat the Demon Lord. Hearing Kazuma's discouraging words, Aqua becomes emotional because if they can't complete their mission, she cannot go back to being a goddess. This made Aqua depressed until the next day, but the receptionist suddenly alarms everyone to head into the front gates, where Verdia, one of the Demon Lord's leaders who recently moved into a nearby town, is waiting for Kazuma and his party members. Verdia, who has lost his patience for enduring constant explosions in his castle, calls out for the mage who's behind those spells. After the adventurers place the blame on an innocent magic user, Megumin takes the initiative to step forward and face Verdia's wrath. After briefly talking to Megumin, Verdia tries to consider Megumin's wrongdoing if she stops firing explosions on his castle, but Megumin declines and calls Aqua for backup. Although purification and healing are Aqua's specialty, Verdia, who's a leader in the opponent's army, is way faster. Verdia casts a death sentence on Megumin, which will happen after 1 week, but Darkness rushes forward and takes the curse instead. Darkness's perverted and masochistic mentality made the atmosphere awkward after saying how Verdia must have wanted her to be submissive and pleasure Verdia in his castle in exchange for removing the curse from her body. Darkness states that Verdia's cruelty is making her give into Verdia's desires and deliberately allow Verdia to use her body however Verdia wants. Verdia tries to dodge the awkwardness by commanding Megumin to come to his castle in order to lift Darkness's curse, and without hesitation, Megumin starts walking forward. Kazuma stops Megumin, saying that he will accompany her to carry her back home after unleashing a spell, but Aqua spoils their motivation after easily lifting Verdia's curse using her holy magic. Emergency quest to repel Verdia is now complete. Earning a measly amount, taking care of a foolish goddess, and having different weirdos in a party made Kazuma eager to go back on Earth while staring at Aqua, who's sleeping in an unladylike manner. In the pub, Aqua expresses her annoyance as her debts are constantly piling up due to their limited quests because of Verdia's presence. Kazuma shows a sulking face in front of the pitiful goddess and allows Aqua to browse a new quest, but Kazuma follows her after Megumin's warning that Aqua might take an insane mission. After following Aqua, who almost took a quest involving beasts, Aqua chooses a quest that requires purifying a lake with monsters instead, but knowing that purifying would take at least half a day, Kazuma immediately refuses to take charge of keeping Aqua safe during the purification process. However, because of their desperate need for funds, Kazuma and his team go to Riverhead Lake while enclosing Aqua inside a cage, which allows them to leave Aqua alone to do the purifying when the monsters arrive while Kazuma, Megumin, and Darkness watch from a distance. After 2 hours, monsters begin to approach Aqua, but this does not alarm Aqua's party members because Aqua is safe inside a cage, no matter how hard the monsters try to gobble her. Despite Aqua's fears, she cannot let go of the quest because of her debts, which made Aqua face another traumatizing experience. After completing her quest to purify the lake, Kazuma realizes that Aqua is yet again traumatized by a quest. On the other hand, Mitsurugi Kyuya, a summoned hero like Kazuma, is currently facing a dragon with his accomplices. After slaughtering their opponent, Kyuya and his 2 party members went home, but the familiar voice of Aqua, who summoned Kyuya in the parallel world, catches his attention. Kyuya sees the goddess's pitiful state and ruins Aqua's cage, trying to free her, but darkness immediately warns Kyuya to stop his attempt to touch Aqua. Kazuma reminds the depressed Aqua that she's a goddess, and Kyuya recognizes her, which eventually leads to Aqua's immediate recovery from her usual conceited and cocky personality. Kyuya immediately bursts out after knowing that Kazuma dragged Aqua into the parallel world and lectures him for letting Aqua sleep inside a barn. Kyuya even praises Kazuma's party members, but seeing Kyuya's life filled with perks, Kazuma cannot help but feel annoyed towards him, who has everything he could ask for. Despite how Aqua, Megumin, and Darkness decline Kyuya's proposal to join his party, he persistently follows Kazuma and his team, saying that he cannot let Aqua live in such a filthy environment. Kyuya challenges Kazuma to a fight, and without warning, Kazuma distracts the annoying hero to steal his sword, which leaves Kyuya unconscious after Kazuma smashes it on his head. Seeing that the hero has fallen, Kyuya's party members start to ridicule Kazuma's cowardice, but after he teases them with his stealing capability, they run as fast as they could from Kazuma. On the next day, Aqua starts a commotion in the pub after knowing that the repair for the cage exceeds her reward from completing her recently traumatizing quest and angrily cusses Kyuya, the real culprit behind the cage's damages. Just in time, Kyuya arrives, seeking revenge for his allies and aiming to kill Kazuma after hearing the unpleasant rumors about him. However, Aqua immediately welcomes him with a strong punch and takes the compensation from Kyuya for breaking the cage. When Kyuya realizes that Kazuma has sold his cursed sword, he and his allies immediately rush away. An emergency announcement specifically mentions Kazuma and his party members' names, and as they go outside the front gate, Verdia, whose pride is hurt after Megumin didn't come into his castle, expresses his rage towards Kazuma and his party. Verdia reveals that Megumin is still firing explosion spells on his castle, confusing Kazuma as they never went there again. But this time, Aqua was the one who accompanied Megumin, aiming to take revenge for Verdia's sudden intrusion in their town, causing weak monsters to hide and low-rank quests to greatly decrease. Verdia tries to scare them with the curse that was vested in Darkness, but everything goes in vain after seeing Darkness alive and well. Aqua casts a spell to purify Verdia, who immediately rolls over the ground after being hit by a sacred light. After all, purifying spells, which a goddess possesses, are one of the prime weaknesses of an undead creature. In fear of Aqua's powers, Verdia summons his undead army and decides to rampage within the town of Axel, but after seeing Aqua, the undead army, which seeks salvation from a goddess, starts to chase Aqua alone. Aqua, who cannot comprehend what she has to do, runs toward Kazuma for help, leaving Kazuma with no other choice but to ask Megumin to fire an explosion to wipe out the undead army at once. After witnessing everything, the other adventurers praise Megumin for her volition, but the celebration ends instantly as Verdia decides to personally kill Kazuma and his party. The other adventurers lash towards Verdia to protect their town, but after Verdia throws his helmet in the air, time starts to flow slowly, which allows him to dodge every attack from the adventurers. Kazuma realizes that there is no one left to save them after Kazuma stole and sold Kyuya's sword, but Darkness bravely counters Verdia's strike, buying people some time to escape. However, Darkness's bravery becomes an embarrassment after missing Verdia. Verdia attacks Darkness with his sword, but given Darkness's perverted and masochistic personality, she stands up with excitement, saying that Verdia is toying with her body by slowly stripping away her armor until she turns naked. Darkness's long and perverted delusional speech generates ample time for Kazuma to prepare his spell. Kazuma fires a water spell, freezes Verdia from his position, and tries to rob Verdia's sword, but Verdia successfully counters Kazuma's spells and beats Darkness, who continuously gets in Verdia's way. Kazuma starts to think from a gamer's point of view, and tries to think of Verdia's possible weakness. Reminiscing about how Verdia carefully avoided Kazuma's water spell, Kazuma realizes that their brute opponent hates water. With the help of every magician in the scene, Kazuma successfully deviates Verdia's interest in their town, but Aqua's uncontrollable sacred water magic caused a flood in front of Axel's gate. Given this, Verdia angrily throws his helmet in the air, aiming to end their silly battle. But Kazuma uses the opportunity to re-steal Verdia's weapon. Kazuma devilishly smiles after seeing Verdia's helmet on his hands and teaches every adventurer how to play soccer using Verdia's helmet while Aqua turnovers to completely purify Verdia. While the sacred light from Verdia's purification is still present, Darkness prays for her previous party members who were slaughtered by Verdia, but some of the men who Darkness thought had died were actually revived by Aqua. Their quest ends with Verdia killed. On the next day, after arriving in the pub, Kazuma receives a hefty award and numerous praises from everyone for saving the town from Verdia. But after knowing that the damage they have to pay for the establishments that Aqua ruined due to the flood costs more than their reward, Kazuma has no other choice but to accept that there's no way to escape his unfortunate isekai life. After their battle with Verdia, the town comes back to its usual ambience, and Kazuma returns to his usual agonizing life as an underpaid adventurer. Kazuma vents his anger towards Aqua, who's the sole reason why their debts are piling up, and they cannot earn enough for their accommodation and food. Darkness and Megumin arrive to look for a new mission, and after brainstorming, Kazuma and his team finally decide to pick a mission that involves weak monsters called snow sprites. But after seeing Darkness's perverted emotions, Kazuma senses that something is fishy about the said mission. As they arrive at the location, the cute mochi-looking monsters welcome Kazuma and his party members. Darkness's sudden change in her battle trait still bothers Kazuma after seeing that instead of wearing armor, Darkness is wearing thin and normal clothes. Kazuma and his team catch the snow sprites with ease, but after Megumin blows up the swarm of monsters, a hurricane suddenly appears from a distance, and Aqua reveals the reason why the mission remains untouched in the guild. Winter Shogun, the ruler of the snow sprites who has a huge bounty on his head, shows himself, and now Kazuma realizes the reason behind Darkness's weird actions. Winter Shogun initiates an attack on Darkness and sends Darkness's sword flying with ease. Aqua releases the remaining snow sprites and asks Kazuma and Darkness to bow their heads to the monster so it will set them free. But Darkness's persistence makes the Winter Shogun impatient and slashes Kazuma's neck. When Kazuma reopens his eyes, he finds himself back in the afterlife's realm and meets another goddess named Eris, who's the total opposite of Aqua. Eris stated that Kazuma will be sent to a new world to have a peaceful life with a well-off family, and after hearing this, Kazuma cannot help but get excited now that he's about to leave his weird party members and end his life's misery as an underpaid adventurer. However, Kazuma's tears start to stream down his cheeks, and he realizes that despite all the terrible things he's been through, Kazuma has grown fond of his previous life with his foolish friends. Eris's summoning gets interrupted by Aqua's voice, who uses her sacred power to partially break into the afterlife's world and call Kazuma. Even though the laws of heaven state that no one should be revived twice in a single world, Eris gives in to her superior's request, especially when Aqua mentions that Eris is wearing pads to increase her chest size. Eris sends Kazuma off with a wink, saying that Kazuma should keep what he heard as a secret. After Kazuma regains his consciousness in the same RPG world, Megumin and Darkness immediately fondle Kazuma with a tight hug after they almost lost him, while on the other hand, Aqua becomes furious after knowing that Kazuma prefers to have Eris over her. Darkness prevents Aqua from almost punching the newly revived Kazuma and shows Kazuma his splattered blood from a distance. After taking their baths, Kazuma and his party members gather in the pub, and Aqua shows the single snow sprite that she hid from the Winter Shogun. With this, Kazuma tries to take away the snow sprite, as it costs a huge sum. But Aqua insists that she'll keep it on a refrigerator instead of handing the monster to the guild, because Aqua already named the monster and is planning to take it as her pet. Kazuma still cannot forget how cute Eris was, but the overwhelming amount of food on their table suddenly alarms Kazuma, who realizes that their debt will increase again and regrets that he declined Eris's offer to bring him back to Japan. Aqua patiently sits in front of a fire to warm herself, but she starts to freak out after realizing that the fire is about to run out. The winter season vastly affect Aqua and Kazuma, who are only sleeping in a barn, and Aqua decides to burn Kazuma's tracksuits and use them to prolong the fire's life. But Kazuma catches Aqua and immediately takes it away from the silly goddess. The two continue to fight until the fire finally runs out, and as Kazuma watches Aqua desperately reviving the fire, Kazuma realizes that he cannot continue to live the same way forever. Kazuma and Aqua visit a shop, and after recognizing Wiz and seeing that an undead is peacefully running a business, Aqua rushes to Wiz and vents on her for living a peaceful life despite being a monster. Kazuma anticipates that Aqua will react this way and immediately hits Aqua's head with a sword to calm her down. Wiz was a kind-hearted lich and the ruler of an undead army called the No-Life King. They once encountered Wiz on a certain mission, but due to Wiz's evident kindness, Kazuma decided to let her go. When Aqua proclaims that she's a goddess, Wiz freaks out not because Aqua is a goddess, but because Aqua's followers are renowned for being crazy, and knowing that Aqua is their leader means that Aqua is way worse than her followers. Aqua attacks Wiz after feeling insulted, and while looking at Aqua and Wiz, Kazuma tiredly watches them from a distance. Upon hearing that Wiz is one of the Demon Lord Army's leaders, Aqua immediately pins Wiz on the floor, saying that their debts will be fully paid once Wiz is turned over to their custody. However, Wiz states that doing such a thing will not reward them because Wiz is only assigned to maintain a barrier in the Demon King's castle to avoid human invasion. Kazuma asks how Wiz felt about Verdia's death, but Wiz casually says that she is not close to Verdia, a pervert who slides his own head under Wiz's skirt. Getting back to their business, Wiz proclaims that she is willing to teach Kazuma one of her skills, but Wiz has to take some of Aqua's magic powers to successfully transfer hers to Kazuma. Aqua, who's still hostile to Wiz, plays hard to get and inquires about the skill first. Wiz explains the skill Drain Touch, which absorbs an opponent's health and magic and then distribute the power to others. When Aqua finally accepts, she suppresses her powers, but Kazuma immediately approaches Aqua and hits her head with no hesitation. After crediting his new skill, Kazuma catches Aqua trying to purify Wiz and stops her by hitting Aqua's head again. Kazuma and his team immediately accept a mission to purify a cursed mansion in exchange for letting Kazuma and his members stay in the mansion once they successfully purify it. Aqua starts spouting words that make her sound like a quack exorcist, while Kazuma, Megumin, and Darkness decide to leave Aqua, who's still talking by herself outside the mansion even after they have unpacked and cleaned their rooms. Kazuma dismisses everyone to rest, and after some hours of lying lazily, Kazuma hears a scream from Aqua's room. Upon arriving in Aqua's room, Kazuma is disappointed to see that Aqua is just having tantrums after finishing her wine. Aqua puts the blame on the spirits and starts running around, purifying the mansion with vigor. When Kazuma reopens his eyes from his sleep, a bunch of scary dolls start chasing him. Kazuma runs toward Aqua's room but sees Megumin instead of Aqua, who hasn't finished the purification yet. Megumin and Kazuma both have a huge urge to pee, but given that Kazuma is a guy, Kazuma can just use the veranda instead of going outside to face those scary dolls. Megumin thinks that Kazuma is too unfair and starts to hold Kazuma back from peeing if he doesn't accompany Megumin to the bathroom. However, a bunch of dolls swarming outside the room's window had them running. Kazuma and Megumin goes to the bathroom, but while waiting for Megumin to finish, Kazuma sees the dolls from a distance and freaks out. Kazuma impatiently breaks the door and pulls Megumin to run, even without her pants. After hiding in a room, Kazuma finally musters the courage to face the evil spirits, but as he opens the door, Aqua's head bumps into it and falls unconscious. After that night, Kazuma and Aqua claim their reward, and Kazuma asks why the mansion is so special. The receptionist explains that it is not the mansion, but rather the graveyard that's near the house. Kazuma remembers about their quest regarding the said graveyard and angrily asks Aqua what really happened. Aqua explains nervously that after she purifies the graveyard, all the spirits went to the mansion instead. After realizing that they got paid because of Aqua's mess, Kazuma decides to return all their reward. While Kazuma is cleaning a child's gravestone, Wiz greets Kazuma and welcomes them into their new home. When Wiz departs, Aqua calls Kazuma for lunch, but Kazuma immediately rushes after overhearing Megumin and Aqua's conversation about burning Kazuma's tracksuits. Kazuma boredly watches Megumin and Darkness as they play chess, and after briefly talking with Aqua, Kazuma leaves with discouragement because, although they finally acquired a home to survive winter, Kazuma and his team still faces a lot of problems, including their debts and inability to fight strong beasts. Kazuma roams around the town and sees Keith and Dust, the two adventurers that Kazuma recently met. Kazuma becomes interested in a dark alleyway that the two are peeking into, but Keith and Dust suddenly pull Kazuma away, saying that it's a secret among male adventurers. After hearing this, Kazuma immediately becomes serious and says that he wants to hop on their plan. Keith and Dust bring Kazuma to a brothel called Hell's Door, where beautiful succubi immediately approach them, and Kazuma meets the guy that he first met in the pub, who turns out to be an artisan weaver and not an adventurer. A succubus approaches Kazuma and explains that their shop makes every man's lustful imaginations come true through their dreams. The succubus hostess hands a form to Kazuma, where he can choose the personality of his chosen succubus. After hearing this, Kazuma asks if he can really choose anything he wants, and the succubus confirms it, which leads Kazuma to immediately fill in the form with excitement. As Kazuma arrives back in their mansion, a feast of giant crabs and wine sent by Darkness's family welcomes Kazuma. However, Kazuma remembers the hostess's advice that Kazuma should not drink any liquor because he wouldn't dream once he fell deeply asleep. Kazuma decides to head to his bedroom first, but since Kazuma is too nervous for his upcoming dream, Kazuma decides to soak himself in a tub. Kazuma slowly feels dizzy and suddenly sees Darkness, who enters the room naked, while Kazuma thinks that he's already dreaming. Darkness cannot avoid feeling her embarrassment after Kazuma stands in front of her naked and asks Darkness to wash his back using a towel. Darkness is very confused about Kazuma's change of behavior, while Kazuma asks Darkness again to wash his back, but this time using her chest. Seeing that Kazuma is very serious, Darkness has no choice but to obey him, much to her embarrassment. When they hear Aqua's voice from the outside, Kazuma immediately rushes to see the situation and discovers that a succubus was caught by Aqua's barrier. With this, Kazuma finally realizes that the bathroom incident was not a dream. Kazuma stands in front of the succubus, trying to protect her from his party members to give her ample time to escape. The next day, Kazuma tries to talk to Darkness about what happened the previous night, saying that he was controlled by the succubus to slide through his mistake. Although Darkness has no choice but to believe in Kazuma, Darkness is still convinced that Kazuma wasn't controlled, as he remembers everything that happened. However, Kazuma and Darkness's little argument is interrupted by a sudden announcement of the Destroyer's presence. Destroyer was an ancient weapon that went on rampage, and even the indecisive Aqua and Megumin suggest that they should run away and avoid facing Destroyer. A meeting among adventurers is immediately held in the pub, where Kazuma concludes that novice adventurers like them wouldn't stand a chance against such a formidable foe. Chris approaches Kazuma, asking if she has any ideas, and by that point, Kazuma immediately thinks about Aqua's ability to break barriers. After confirming that Aqua has a high probability of destroying Destroyer's barrier in his body, everyone in the guild decides to use Megumin's explosion magic to finish the opponent off, but Megumin herself states that her powers wouldn't be enough to defeat Destroyer. The adventurers decide to team up, including Wiz, an archmage who's also registered as an adventurer while hiding her true identity. While Darkness and Kazuma stand in the front line, Darkness reveals her true identity as Dustiness Ford Lalatina, the Axel's governor's daughter to Kazuma, who immediately ridicules Darkness's funny surname. Everyone is finally prepared in their destined positions, and Aqua begins her attack by casting a spell that successfully destroys their opponent's barrier. On the other hand, Kazuma insults Megumin for being wimpy, and because of this, Megumin's fear slowly subsides, and she starts chanting an explosion spell together with Wiz, putting Destroyer down. Kazuma spoils Aqua's excitement for a celebration after hearing an announcement that the Destroyer is about to self-destruct and will cause a massive explosion. People start to run away except for Darkness, who intends to destroy the machine before it explodes. After seeing Darkness's bravery, the other adventurers regain their courage, aiming to protect the city, especially the Hell's Door brothel. Everyone invade Destroyer's huge body, trying to find Destroyer's core, but end up seeing a human skeleton with a diary. The skeleton and diary belong to the person who created Destroyer. After being tasked with the mission of creating a mobile fortress, the creator started asking insane requests to dodge their insane command. But since the kingdom was able to provide what the creator requested, the creator had no other choice but to do what they asked. The machine messed up and killed several people, but the creator was too foolish and scared to set out from Destroyer, so he decided to just watch everything and die inside. Kazuma and his friends finally seize the Destroyer's core, and Wiz suggests to teleport the core to keep everyone safe. However, both Wiz and Aqua's magic are already running out. Wiz asks to take Kazuma's magic powers and almost drains Kazuma's energy. They successfully teleport the core away from the Destroyer, but steam starts to set off from the Destroyer's body. They have to deal the final blow, but everyone's magic is already drained. Just in time, Megumin arrives while being carried by one of the adventurers. Megumin initiates another explosion, which marks the end of their arduous battle. The town goes back to its usually peaceful ambience, and Kazuma continually spends his days with his weird party members. While Kazuma is peacefully wiping his sword, Aqua barges into the room, saying that a group of knights are looking for Kazuma. After hearing this, Kazuma confidently faces the knights, thinking that they have come to personally give Kazuma his rewards. But instead, a knight hands a warrant of arrest to Kazuma, since the Destroyer's core teleported into a nobleman's mansion and blew his every little possession. Kazuma remains blank, thinking that if he got another opportunity to reincarnate, he wouldn't hesitate to take it.